I've made many mistakes, and here they are. It just shows like 15 children. Hi guys, but before that, this video is sponsored by KeysOff.com. KeysOff.com is a key reselling website that sells discounted Windows 10 licenses and Office 2019 and 2021 products. And now you guys can use code VKB50 or the links in the description below for a discount off many of the site's products. This is a great way to get cheap keys for Windows 10 and Windows 11 if you want to get rid of that stupid activation watermark. So, if you're looking for cheap Windows keys, check them out in the description below. Now, let's get back to the video. This is my dedicated streaming PC, and I royally fucked it up. And in today's video, we're going to go through exactly how I did that. So hopefully, if you build a dedicated streaming PC, or at this point, any PC, in the near or distant future, you might be able to avoid some of the mistakes that I've made. So let's just get right into it. Now, obviously, this PC looks amazing, and that's not one of the problems that I've had with it. Alright, let's turn this thing off and take it apart. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to go through all of the mistakes I made whilst building this PC and talk about the problems that they've caused. I'm going to start off right away with a very common mistake. I forgot an I/O shield. I never had one. I bought this motherboard used and it just never had one with it. So, yeah. Also, as a side note, completely ignore this computer that looks like a monster mess of cables. You'll learn about this in a future video or a past one, depending on how editing goes. So the CPU in this streaming PC is a Ryzen 7 2700X, and that CPU occupies an Aorus B450M motherboard. That is a micro ATX B450 motherboard, and that's actually where our problems begin. Unfortunately, for a dedicated streaming PC such as this one, a budget chipset and a consumer CPU just is not ideal. Because the main problem that I'm currently having with this computer stems from my choice of platform. There just simply is not enough I/O. AverMedia Live Gamer 4K capture card that occupies a full PCI Express 4X interface. This capture card consistently saturates that interface, running a consistent 1440p 144Hz signal from my gaming PC. One Elgato HD60 Pro that occupies a full PCI Express 1X interface. One GeForce GTX 1070 graphics card that occupies a full 16X PCI Express slot. This is the 1070 Katana. In case you're wondering, it's super sick and I love it. It occupies a single slot and is great for our PC. Why it's not great, we'll talk about later. So we've got our 3 PCIe cards. We've also got a 1080p webcam, an XLR microphone with USB sound mixer, an Elgato Stream Deck, keyboard, mouse, and other peripherals, combined with the fact that I want to add a second 4K webcam to my stream, and adding all those together, we end up with a fuck ton of I/O. The B450 chipset simply does not have that I/O capability. Don't forget, I need at least a 16X, a 4X, and a 1X interface. Although ideally, a board that could handle 2 4K capture cards and still have enough I/O left for all my cameras would be absolutely perfect. Which brings us to my second mistake. The form factor. Whilst I love micro ATX, as cases like this is the ZZAW B2 or something like that, exist that are the exact size of the micro ATX, lead to what I believe is a perfect combination of I/O space and form factor. Micro ATX is kind of weird, to say the least. See, at the lower end, boards are super budget. You get your B450 or B550 motherboards on the AMD side, and Intel, I have no idea. And they tend to be cheaper boards with not a lot of I/O and very scarce on features. On the other end, if you want higher end motherboards that are micro ATX, they are super expensive, if they even exist at all. My recommendation, if you're building one yourself, go save yourself some trouble and just get a small full ATX chassis. Although I do plan on continuing to use micro ATX because I can, and hope you'll stay around for the follow-up video where I upgrade this computer to a more ideal solution. This computer sucks. Now my final notes as I'm taking out this motherboard. For our power supply, I went with a Corsair SF600 80 plus platinum unit that I had just lying around, and so far I have really no complaints about it. It's a power supply and it's been supplying power, so I see no reason to switch that out. And we've got our empty case right there, which we'll put to the side as there's really not much to it. And finally, we're just left with our motherboard and CPU. This is actually the 50th anniversary edition Lisa Su signed 2700X, in case you were wondering. So I am going to keep it, but it's probably not going to be in my streaming PC anytime soon, as I'm planning an entire platform upgrade and switch, which I hope you'll stay tuned for, well, what should be the next video, but will probably be like, I don't know, one of the future videos because my editing schedule is terrible, but it's going to be great nonetheless. Now, on my final note, we have our graphics card. This is the aforementioned GTX 1070 Katana, a GTX 1070 8GB card in a cute single slot package. Well, kind of an epic single slot package, got a katana on it. Now, for a streaming PC, a dedicated graphics card isn't entirely necessary. Our CPU is doing most of the heavy lifting for our X264 encoding, so I don't really have to worry about it too much, but it's definitely nice to have a backup graphics card just in case the CPU decides to not want to work or is overheating or something's wrong. It's nice to have our NVENC encoder just in case. Now, a GTX 1070 is great for that, but unfortunately, for a single slot graphics card, it could be just slightly better, as the I/O on this card is scarce to say the least, with one DisplayPort, one HDMI, and one DVI. I did that backwards, I don't care. I've actually got a better single slot graphics card, and that's the card I'll be using for a future upgrade. It's got a USB-C out. Actually, I have it right here, hold on. The Quadro RTX 4000 is going to be just a much better card for this build. It's got 3 DisplayPorts and a USB-C out, which means that we can use a much smaller USB-C display and have an overall better and more compact streaming setup. So that's the card I'll be using in the video where I rebuild this entire PC, but way better. I don't really have any problems with my AverMedia 4K capture card or my Elgato HD 60 Pro. Now, this 4K 60 Pro may or may not find its way into that same PC. It sucks and I hate it. This is the worst capture card any company has ever made. Since Corsair bought Elgato, they've turned it into a steaming hunk of garbage. Corsair, stop buying things and making them worse. You're the CNN of the PC community. And that's about it for the teardown and talking about how I messed up my streaming PC. Hopefully you won't make some of the same mistakes if you could decipher anything I've said in this video, because quite frankly, I'm very tired. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for when I build an extremely insane Extreme Edition streaming PC in a future video. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.